So this is Diesel for the People News. This is Jeff Morgan, Judge Watcher, okay? And he's going to be talking about contempt of court and what is it. Well, I think we all should know this in one shape, form, or fashion. Alright? I'm not an attorney, neither is he. So this is just a learning video to be able to protect ourselves by any means necessary. Let's proceed forward.
Correct. Less than 2 minutes later, I would be handcuffed to a chair in Judge Jordan's courtroom, charged with criminal contempt for supposedly interfering with a court hearing and heading to jail. In this situation right here, there were no indications that the court was in session. Employee Judge Daryl Jordan was very upset that his employer wanted to know, Daryl Jordan, I've been sending you all these complaints. How come you're not answering me? You want to hold me in contempt? Should we ask the questions? Go ahead. We're just trying to find out why our complaints have been gone unanswered. He did not like to have to answer to his employer. So they hauled him off and they stuck him in prison. All right, sir. You got a problem with that? Sure. There was a writ of habeas corpus filed by Mr. Dolcefino's attorney. Habeas corpus is a recourse in law through which a person can report an unlawful detention or imprisonment. So here he is sitting in jail, and they filed a writ of habeas corpus against Judge God, employee Daryl Jordan, because Judge God, employee Daryl Jordan, unlawfully imposed imprisonment upon Mr. Dolcefino. Well, in this case, the actions of the judge were so egregious, so over the top, that the state of Texas conceded. The applicant is entitled to relief. How bad of a judge God do you have to be? How disrespectful does this employee have to be to his employer, his taxpayer employer, Wayne Dolcefino, that the state of Texas says we give up? We're not even going to try to defend this, because usually the state of Texas has a duty to defend these people. And the state of Texas is like, this is indefensible. There's nothing we can do about it. No oral arguments were necessary in this case. We are just going to roll over like a dog on his back with his paws up. Whatever you want, go ahead and do it. The circumstances did not support the allegation that Judge God, employee Daryl Jordan, was making. So there was just no possible way that that Mr. Dolcefino was guilty of direct criminal contempt. But my purpose for this whole thing is that I wanted to learn more about what is contempt of court. What is this contempt of court stuff? Because sometimes you hear judges threaten contempt of court. I'm going to hold you in contempt. It's almost like you go knocking on somebody's door at Halloween, trick or treat, and instead of giving out candy, the judge gods give out contempt of court. Here's one for you, one for you, one for you. I'm going to threaten all of you. In fact, I've heard judges basically threaten every person in the state of Texas. If you record this proceeding, you are going to be held in direct contempt of court. Now, that is an abuse of his authority, in my opinion. That is something where the employee, the judge employee, just does not want to be held accountable to his employers, the taxpayers of the state of Texas. Anyway, as you'll see right here, I sort of talk a little bit about contempt of court. Direct contempt occurs when the words spoken or acts performed constituting contempt occur in the presence of the court where the judge witnesses the conduct. So it appears first off for contempt to take place that you must be in the courtroom and the judge must witness it. And I think this is very important to my point that's going to be coming up in just a few moments. Actions of direct contempt are a use of judicial power to preserve order in the courtroom for the proper conduct of business and to instantly suppress disturbance or violence or physical destruction or disrespect to the court. Now, when we look at the issues of contempt of court, if you go to some of these judicial YouTube channels, they have a big sign up there that says no direct recording, no video recording, no photographing of this YouTube video presentation, or you will be held in contempt of court. I've listened to judges that have threatened, if anybody is videotaping this, you can be held in contempt of court. Judge Godessa now will threaten people with contempt of court. And that's why he cut off the YouTube hearing with Taryn Champagne in his case. And evidently, Judge God here, our employee, Mr. Daryl Jordan, thought that, you know what, I don't like him asking me why I have not been doing my duty, so I'm going to threaten him with contempt of court. Using contempt of court can be an act of judicial abuse, and I'm going to read a little bit further about that. Contempt is a strong medicine. Use it cautiously and only as a last resort. So this is not a treat for a little doggy, like doggies you pass out treats to, or Halloween treats. Contempt is supposed to be a strong medicine. A strong medicine. If there's a sickness, you take a strong medicine. You don't usually take a strong medicine every day, but contempt is a strong medicine. Use it cautiously and only as a last resort. The power to punish for contempt should only be exercised with caution, and contempt is not to be presumed. But on the contrary, contempt is presumed not to exist. Whoa, 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 whoa. Now, this is a wake-up call to the judges, because the judges want to say contempt will take place if you do this, if you do that, if you do this, if you do that. Contempt is presumed not to take place. Contempt is presumed not to take place. It should be used as a strong medicine. It should be used cautiously. It is presumed not to take place, but our judge gods, our employees in the state of Texas, sometimes forget that fact. So what is contempt? The essence of contempt is that the conduct obstructs or tends to obstruct the proper administration of justice. So these judges are not like when we videotape their hearings, because somehow that may obstruct justice, or may tend to obstruct justice. In actuality, from my perspective, I think to not hold judges to the highest level of their office is to show them contempt. For us to say, you are our employee, we have given you this very special position, you must comport yourself in accordance with the judicial canons, we must be able to watch you to make sure that you are not exercising judicial abuse, we must be able to watch you to make sure that you are not abusing or threatening people that are in your court. That is a proper use of us and our responsibility to oversee our courts. Article 1, Section 13 of the Texas Constitution says that courts are to remain open. Why? The courts are to remain open so that we, the people, can go into the courts and observe the administration of justice or injustice in our courts. And if the judges don't like that, they are holding you in contempt. If the judges threaten you with contempt of court because you're watching them, because you're court watching, and I would say even if you're videotaping them, I think that is contemptuous behavior on behalf of the judges. I think that that is something that we should be allowed to do, because if we want to file a complaint against the judge, the first thing the State Commission of Judicial Conduct will ask for is the evidence. Now, that august body that very seldom actually rules against a judge, you have to show them everything on a silver platter, and you've got to have decorative things around it, and just, here you go, State Commission of Judicial Conduct, here's the evidence. And even still they'll say, I don't know, I just don't quite see it. Maybe the judge was exercising judicial discretion, because you see, the state of Texas, the State Commission on Judicial Conduct, also forgets that they are our employees as well. Some bad employees covering for other bad employees. That's just not a good dynamic. Once again, we, the people, the taxpayers of Texas, are the employers of these judges, and also of the...
Now, just to remind someone, and I don't know for a fact on Texas, Virginia, they have other judges judging judges, okay? And I think that's every state. Now, don't take me as facts. I don't know, okay? But the way I'm seeing this, and the way they play these games, judges are judging judges, attorneys are judging attorneys, police are judging police. Get the picture?
august body, the State Commission on Judicial Conduct, to whom we send our complaints, where they basically go into the black hole and are denied for all intents and purposes. Anyway, when this was heard, there was nothing that would constitute contempt of court. There was nothing in the conversation that would indicate the court was in session, that it was in a hearing, that it was conducting any form of business whatsoever. There was nothing that would indicate that the court was in session. Yet the Judge God said, "You are interrupting the court. You either have to leave or I will hold you in contempt of court." Judge God, employee Daryl Jordan, was wearing his judicial attire and therefore thought he could get away with all these actions. He forgot that he was the employee, that Mr. Dolcefino and we, the taxpayers of Texas, are his employers, and he treated Mr. Dolcefino with extreme contempt and put him in jail. He had a bailiff come take him away, and that's the way the judicial abuse works in the state of Texas. Now, there was something else that took place here, too, even where a finding of direct contempt.
I can't remember what year it was, but there was a bad judge in East Texas, and the town gathered around and told the sheriff to arrest that judge. Well, the sheriff ignored him. So they got more people gathered around, and they all marched to the sheriff's station and demand for that sheriff to arrest that judge, and he did. We have a tendency to forget sheriffs actually has authority to arrest judges. They are not gods. And we have a tendency to think that judges have all these powers that they do not have. Anyway, and sorry that I couldn't remember it, but it was years ago when this happened, and I didn't even live in the same town. It was a family friend was in that area.
Is justified, that does not automatically warrant a summary punishment of the contemnor without a notice and a hearing. So what also took place after this is that Mr. Dolcefino was deprived of due process, he was deprived of a notice, and he was deprived of a hearing. And furthermore, what is stated is this: summary punishment for direct contempt is justified only when the contempt is committed in the presence of a court and there is an exigent situation, that is, one in which the judge is required to act immediately to quell disruption, violence, disrespect, or physical abuse. Once the immediate disturbance has dissipated and a hearing could have been held, due process, and by the way, the hearing needs to be held in public. The hearing does need to be held in public at this time anyway. There are some times that you can't have a private hearing, you can have a star chamber at times, but the court's burden is to meet a very high standard to permit that to take place. Other than that, we the people have the right to be there, and if they hold a star chamber hearing, it not only violates the individual's rights, it also violates the rights of the people of the state of Texas. They are violating many people's rights at one time by not giving us public hearings. Once the immediate disturbance has been dissipated and the hearing could have been held, due process mandates it should have been held. Respondent's refusal, and the respondent here was the employee, Judge God, Daryl Jordan. His refusal to hold a hearing later in the afternoon of June 30th, despite a direct request from the applicant's counsel, was not justified. So once again, Judge God, employee, Judge God, Daryl Jordan, he never told Mr. Dolcefino that each act of real contempt, not this made-up contempt that Judge God, employee, Judge God, Daryl Jordan had in mind, were actually punishable by a $500 fine and up to 6 months in confinement in Harris County Jail. Even in the contempt hearing, after employee, Judge God, Daryl Jordan, ordered that his employer, Mr. Taxpayer Wayne Dolcefino, be taken into custody, even then, he did not inform his employer of the punishment range for contempt. In other words, Judge God employee Daryl Jordan was using what he thought was his judicial authority to abuse his employer. And this was what takes place many times a day in the courts in the state of Texas. Now, this so happened to take place in a criminal court, but I will tell you this: if you really want to see abuses take place, go to the family courts. Family courts are notoriously evil, notoriously wicked, notorious for abusing their authorities on a daily basis, sometimes almost on an hourly basis, I would believe. We cannot permit this type of judicial abuse to take place in the state of Texas. We must speak out against it. We must hold our judges accountable. We, as the employers of these Judge God employees, need to have the right to make sure that our employees, the State Commission on Judicial Conduct, is finding these Judge Gods worthy of being sanctioned and punished, reprimanded, and more than just a 2-hour course and a little slap on the wrist. We need to get rid of this abusiveness. Mr. Dolcefino fortunately had the ability to hire an attorney to challenge this. And because of that, we found out that contempt of court must take place in a courtroom. The judge must witness it, not after the fact be informed of it. And it must be something that's going to cause the obstruction of justice. When we are court watching, in my opinion, and when we are videotaping or audio taping or doing whatever we do out there to watch our courts, we are not obstructing justice. We are ensuring justice. We have that right, that responsibility to observe and to oversee our courts. We should not be held in contempt of court. And these judges that threaten us with contempt of court, they have contempt of the public. And we need to start holding them to account. Every time they hold us and try to hold us into contempt of court, every time they try to use the contempt of court as a Halloween candy trick or treat they hand out to people, we need to be filing complaints against them. They are abusing their authority. They are not treating us in a dignified and respectful manner. We need to clean up our courts in the state of Texas. The criminal court here was one, but we really need to clean up the family courts or the anti-family courts, where the judges often think that they themselves are the Constitution and that they themselves are the law and that they themselves are the God over people's lives. Anyway, that's it. I want to thank Mr. Dolcefino, a friend of mine, for going through this, for challenging it, and for allowing us to have access to this document, this wonderful document, which tells us what contempt of court is, and also puts restraints upon judges in exercising their ability to want to throw out their contempt of court. Once again, this is all in my opinion. I am not an attorney, and once again, I wish the attorneys would just let people know that they are not theologians, they are not counselors, they are not mediators. There's a lot of things that they aren't, that they pretend to be. If they hold us to one standard, we need to hold them to the same standard as well. And that's it for right now. Thank you so much.
So I'm in custody for contempt of court, and I don't need my mask because I am stuck in this room waiting to be taken to jail. Take a look.
Well-known investigative reporter Wayne Dolcefino walked into court shackled and disheveled.
After a night in jail with my bologna sandwich, I was taken off the chain gang just long enough to be brought back into court. My head bowed, trying to keep the COVID mask on as required by the judge. I am now in an elite group. There have been 45 folks charged with contempt of court in the 38 criminal courts in Harris County in 3.5 years. And no judge has used this awesome power more than Judge Jordan, who loves to talk about fairness.
There can only be one standard, and that's how we end discrimination. That's how we end unequal treatment in our courts. We ensure that everyone is treated the same.
Yet I'm the only single person in the entire county who wasn't already charged with another crime who was arrested and convicted for contempt in 2 hours. But if you believe Judge Jordan, well, my questions that morning, they were off the charts.
And what happened yesterday was completely off the charts. The only thing I could have done different was get down on my knees and beg your client to please stop.
What Judge Jordan didn't know until now was that the entire conversation we had in court that morning was captured on hidden camera. And that means it's now public. The best evidence of what really happened that morning. Part of my formal appeal to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals.
Look up Jeff Morgan. There may be some other ones out there, and I'm sure there is. This is the only way I'll be able to find this. Not easy to find, y'all, of such things, especially on video, and stands his ground like he does. Kadoki. Apparently this guy is serious about these things. I might have to yell at my dog, y'all. Excuse me. Junior! Anyway, this is Diesel for We the People News. What do you think? Right? Until next time, y'all. Diesel with the People News. Bye.